Hey, this is great. I'm glad you agreed to come on. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
man, most definitely.
you got a podcast too, right?
Yeah, it's called Now That's Debatable. And what we do is we debate people on various topics.
Okay.
Lately, we've been focusing on religious issues, but we tackle politics, philosophy, science. A lot of our
Okay.
early episodes was covering more diverse topics. But what we notice is that people tend to, we're getting more viewers
Hmm.
when we talk about like religious issues.
That's
And
the hot topic right now.
yeah, I guess it kind of make more sense. Like a lot of the people that I know, they
Hmm.
tend to watch. They tend to care more about what I say about my religious positions than
Okay.
other things, because of my background. So
Okay. So we're gonna talk
yeah,
about the background and all that. I'm just curious, how are we connected? We're connected on Facebook.
yeah,
How did we become Facebook friends? Like, is it like from a
yeah.
cross
Because
movie connection or
yes,
what?
it's from Crossman. This is
Okay.
from way back, man. Like I started listening to you around 96, 97. I was like a mad little kid. Yeah, my dad bought me. Brought me. He brought Heaven's Mentality back home.
Okay.
And so, I mean,
Wow.
yeah, we were listening to Crossman way back then.
Okay.
Matter of fact, you probably see, I don't know. I wanted to go back to I was trying to see if I could find a message, but I had sent you a
Mm.
message back in when I was in college. I was trying to ask you to come to Liberty University, do a concert there.
Wow. What was it, like an email or something?
I think it was. I was trying to
Okay.
find it. I thought it was on Facebook. I know I sent it. It was somewhere, but
Okay. Well,
yeah,
if it was it me or cross movement you were asking
it
to
was
come?
you. It was you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could have been Facebook.
Okay.
I think if it was prior to, if it was an email or something, it might have been like back in the cross movement days, but it was,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Wow, man. So you grew up in a Christian home.
I did. Yeah, my dad's a pastor.
Okay.
My mother, she took uh Christianity very seriously as well.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, she passed during COVID. But when
Sorry to
my
hear that,
dad,
bro.
yeah, and so when my dad, when he founded his own church,
Hmm.
he my mom, she started preaching as well, and so there
Okay.
was kind of like dual pastor thing.
Okay.
And
So
so
there was
me,
nothing in your home about women can't pastor, women can't any of that kind of stuff.
there was, but
Oh,
it,
interesting.
it's very complicated.
Okay.
So that was so like I don't know how they sorted that out. I was
Mm,
really young
okay.
when that was going on, but I remember hearing them discuss it several
Mm,
times in the car.
wow.
But it it happened.
Okay. So just to spoiler alert, you're going by the name of Tribulate the Humanist.
Yes, that's my podcast name.
Okay.
Yeah,
But in real life, Joshua Caldwell.
yeah, Joshua Caldwell is my
Okay.
real
So I
name.
just want to introduce to everybody. This is Joshua Caldwell, aka Tribulate the Humanist.
Mhm.
By the name Tribulate the Humanist, we can only assume you're no longer a Christian.
No.
So this is a proper life after faith episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Growing up in a Christian house with two parents in ministry, siblings,
I had one sibling.
one sibling. Okay.
Mhm.
Um,
That sibling's a Christian rapper, by the way.
are you serious?
Yeah,
Okay. And does your family know that you're no longer a believer?
they do. They do.
How long have you been deconverted?
Since like 2018.
Man, there's so many folks. I meet few people who've deconverted as early as like 2011, 2012. Many
Hmm.
of the people that I'm running into, it's like that 2016 to 2018 window.
Yeah.
A lot of deconversions in there. So I'm just very curious. Maybe I shouldn't ask that question yet. Let's talk about how you came to faith. Growing up in a Christian home, was there ever a time where you personalized the belief of the household and it became your belief, not just your parents' belief?
Yeah. That happened in when I was in high school. I was probably the few months up leading up to my graduation from high school, I
Mhm.
began to take it very seriously.
How
Like
were you before then?
I was the preacher's kid. So I was like, I mean, that's kind of how I saw myself. It was like, I
Well,
like,
preacher's
yeah,
kids can be like the worst
yeah,
kids.
yeah. I mean, yeah, sure, sure, sure. So like, the way I saw it was like, my dad's a Christian, so
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I am because that's what
Okay.
I'm supposed to be. And
Okay.
so I didn't really take it seriously.
Okay. So did that show up in like where and this seems so like pedestrian now to ask these kind of questions, but it kind of helps color things for some people.
Mhm.
Were you the typical preacher's kid? Like they could expect you to be the one wilding out, or
um,
because you're the preacher's kid, No, he's not gonna be the one cursing, not gonna be the one smoking. Like, what kind of preacher's kid were you?
They expected the wilding out from my brother. From
Ah,
me, I was a little more reserved.
you're older
More,
or younger?
I'm younger.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, I was a little more reserved. And when I started taking it seriously, I got and it was like around January
Mm-hmm.
of my senior year. So like the last half of my senior year, I
Mm-hmm.
started taking it very seriously. And I was like, I wanted to get that, in Acts 2:38, when Peter's like,
Mm-hmm.
repent, be baptized, be filled with the Holy Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like I wanted that. That's
What
what I
what
was
what what made you want that? Like, what led to the you saying, you know what, it's time to turn the fire on?
man, I don't know.
Mm.
Um, I don't it came all of a sudden. Well,
Mm.
yeah, I can't even tell you what I do know this, that the although I started taking my Christianity seriously around that time,
Mm.
I had always believed it. Not
Okay.
because I reckoned it to be, but
Mm.
because I was just indoctrinated in it.
Okay.
It was just never something that was questioned.
Got
But
you.
because of that, my eternal destiny
Mm.
was something that I was always concerned
Okay.
about. So I mean, I can't tell you how many times
Mm.
as a child I would have sleepless nights just
Mm.
repenting
Wow.
because I didn't want to go to hell.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if you know if you can think back this far. I know that the hell thing was probably traumatic, and so you remember it, but was it also the other side of that coin? And I want to be with God too. Like, I want to be in heaven, not just not in hell.
not as much.
Okay. That's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because if someone,
Mm.
if I was taught that instead of, like, I could either go to heaven and be with God forever, or just cease to be, I
Hmm.
probably wouldn't have cared as much.
Mm.
I would have been like,
Wow.
okay, yeah, whatever.
Mm.
I'll just cease to be.
Okay.
I mean, but like, just
It's a
the
great comment. Yeah.
yeah, the thought of being
Mm.
tortured infinitum by
Mm.
fire. It's like, that's kind of
That's something that I think more Christians could think. Like, I never thought about that as a Christian. Like, if you took hell out of the equation and just like asked me, would you rather live forever with God or at some point be able to like think about that to the Christian who's watching this? Like, it's weird to even think these kind of thoughts because I kind of know what the Christian's going to say in response to this. But if you ever got to the point in eternity where you just did not want to be anymore, do you even have that option? Like, you have to be.
right.
Even if you like, even if you
You don't
cease
have a
once, you
choice.
right. That's the weirdest thing. Like,
Hmm.
but I think the Christian would probably tell me what you would have said as a Christian once you got more into your theology. But I think the Christian is going to say something to the effect of, well, at God's right hand are pleasures forevermore. You're never going to get to the point where you don't want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I would have agreed with that.
Okay.
Just like seeking and understanding Christ. It was just
Mm.
like it was just some mystery that we would never fully understand. And
Mm.
so, like, just the the intellectual vigor
Mm.
involved in that,
Mm.
it would that would always be there because we would
Mm.
never completely find that out.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, I probably would have said something like that.
All right.
But yeah, it it was more the fear of hell
Okay.
than the one to be with Jesus. But then
Mm.
when I started taking it seriously, it wasn't really just the fear of hell.
Mm.
I was like a genuinely wanted to
Mm.
know more about Christ, and I wanted to take my faith seriously.
What
And so
changed when you said I'm going to start taking this seriously? Like, what changed in your life or your thinking or
I started. I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music when I was younger, so we used to sneak it. Like one time, my dad, he brought in this CD. It was like this Disney CD, but me and my brother opened it, and it said Marshall Mathers LP. It was like, what? Dude, dad had no idea what he brought in. He got it from a yard sale, and we were like bumping it. And so like and and so they would we get like other secular music from like my cousin. I used to go to my a cousin. He's the manager of the podcast network that I'm on, and I used to go to his aunt's house. I mean, go to his mom's house, and I'd be sneaking down there and listening to his CDs and stuff. And then like, I mean, I just loved hip hop. And so when I started taking Christianity seriously, I threw all that away. I also my language
Okay.
cleaned up.
Okay.
I tried to start encouraging my friends to
Mm.
be more like Christ. And then like even like during praise and worship,
Mm-hmm.
which was my least favorite part of church. I hated
Mm.
it
Mm.
because first, like I don't really care for gospel music. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
like anti-religious about it. And there's too many people singing at one time. So I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't dig it, man.
Okay.
And so, but I go in there and I started raising my hands and
Mm.
closing my eyes and all that kind of stuff. And so like I
Mm-hmm.
started doing all that and I started praying on my own. I was
Mm.
fasting. So
Reading the
that's
Bible on your own too?
yes, I was doing it. And I had actually been doing that.
Okay.
That was one thing that I had done just growing up,
Okay.
period. Because
Why?
my dad and
Okay.
my mom, they kind of forced that on us. They wanted
Gotcha.
us to read the Bible on our own.
Okay.
And I think if they didn't do that,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably still be a Christian right now.
Okay.
It was
Mm.
me reading the Bible on my own is eventually what led me away from it.
Okay. So I'm curious, reading the Bible because mom and dad were making you, but then when you get to this point where now you're going to care about your faith, you start praying on your own,
Yeah.
still reading the Bible, did your time in the Bible change from a chore to a joy?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was like, I mean, I wish I had my old Bible, but I
Mm.
mean,
Mm.
everything in there was like highlighted
Okay.
because like everything was like deep to me. Like like people like like some Christians you'll highlight parts that they like or the parts
Mm-hmm.
that was deep.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see mine, all of it was highlighted because it was like this was
Right.
like I'm discovering this for the
It's
first
lighting up
time.
centers of your brain. It's just like, yo,
Right.
this is crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. This is
Yeah.
yeah.
It was like whoa, and I was like I want to know more about this,
Mm.
and so I decided that I wanted to go to school. I wanted to be a theologian. So
Mm.
I enrolled in Liberty University. It's a
And when you say a
evangelical.
theologian, like what did you mean? Because theologian is a very broad, like
It
what were you
is.
going to do with being a theologian?
I didn't really have a clear goal. I know
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to do at minimum was to teach theology
Okay.
and at some university. That was that was at
So your career path was going to be something with you teaching the Bible.
yes.
What was it going to be before you got turned on? Did you have a like you wanted to be a lawyer or something, or you just had no?
Not really. I didn't
So
have
this is the
anything.
first time now you have a passion for your future, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Completely took over.
Okay.
And
I'm just real curious. What did your brother think about your conversion or your taking your faith seriously? Did you bug him out, or was it like,
not really, because my brother had he was away at college at the
okay,
time. And
cool,
so he had left like the year prior. So he was away doing his own thing.
gotcha.
And so then I was there. And I know my brother was relieved that
Mm.
I started taking my faith seriously.
Why?
Well,
If,
because
if
at
if
the
he
time,
was wilding out, why was he relieved that you were?
because he was like my brother's very protective of me.
Oh, okay.
He's like, I'm gonna do my dirt, but I don't want you doing none of it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he was like. Like I just try to follow him and be bad with his little
Gotcha.
friends. And he'd be like, no, don't come over here.
Okay. Wow, that's
That's,
interesting.
yeah, so that's what he was like. And so
Hmm.
yeah,
Were
he
your
was
parents relieved too? Were they like, yeah, he's in, or like,
there were I don't I remember my mom encouraging me
mhm.
a lot. She was like, she told me just to keep doing exactly what I was doing.
Okay.
And so she was proud of me of that. I don't remember I don't remember a specific conversation from my dad,
Mhm.
but I do know he was relieved.
Mm.
I could imagine. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't imagine being a father and
Mhm.
believing that there's a possibility that your children can go to hell.
Yeah.
And now I'm saying that at least one of your children is headed towards a straight and narrow. I'm
Okay.
sure he was relieved. So I leave there. Oh, one thing. So this also happened around the same time that my best friend, who's still my best friend
Mm.
now, who's also an atheist,
Mm.
who co-hosts my podcast with me.
Wow.
But the same thing starts happening to him, and
Mm.
he's like, he wants to do that too.
Because of you or separate from you?
No, it's separate,
Wow.
totally separate. It's just like
Were
it
y'all
kind of
going
just
to the
happened.
same church?
No, we went to the same school though.
Okay, interesting.
And so yeah, and then enrolled at Liberty University
Mm.
at the same time.
I'm
And
sorry, for backgrounds, one more question. What kind of church did you guys grow up in, or your parents' ministry?
it was non-denominational, but it
Mm.
was just one of those type of non-denominational churches that where they speak in tongues and
Okay.
they emphasize like very literal translations of the Bible, King
Okay.
James only, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I go to Liberty University, and me and my best friend, we start our street ministry.
Mm.
Where we would go out and we preach to people.
Mm.
And so we like my pickup line was like this. I was like, hey bro, where you going when you kick the bucket? And it would just shock people. And they were like, what did you say? And then I was like, cool, that'll be my chance to go in. And we start talking. And then like sometimes it turns into an argument. We start doing apologetics
Mm.
right then. And
Did you
so
know what
like
apologetics was, or you just were doing it because it needed to be done?
I was just doing it. I had no idea what it was.
Okay.
And so, a matter of fact, I wasn't even expecting anybody to argue with me. I thought it was just, listen, just let me preach to them. But then when he started arguing back, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm like, well, I'm ready, man. Like, I'm a very confrontational type of guy.
Mhm.
So, like, if you want to challenge me, cool, let's go.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, so we were doing that like pretty much like every weekend. We don't go to parties or anything like that. We were doing this. We were out there.
Wow. Wow.
We would show up to the parties to do this. So like, yeah, we were just guys.
Did you find the need as you're learning that, without knowing the terminology, but as you're learning that you need to do apologetics, you need to defend the faith and have answers, did that send you back to like, I got to study more, I got to learn more about this, that, or the third, or did you feel equipped for it?
I already felt equipped,
Oh, okay.
honestly, because I mean, like I said, man, I was like, we were like deep into like studying the Bible, just like since I was a kid. You know, I mean, so like my dad was making us memorize scriptures. We have our own Bible study. I mean, it was just all around us. It was in the music. I mean, so there was a lot of things that we just knew. Like I was in part of this Bible quiz thing where they would quiz kids on just their Bible knowledge. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, I felt equipped. There wasn't, and one thing that I didn't realize was that religious dogma, sometimes like if you don't know things, you kind of make them up, right? And so like it's not like you're lying,
Right,
you're not intentionally lying, but you can kind of just say things without proving it, right? And so this it really aggravates Christians once they're confronted, because I have apologists that come on our show and they'll still say things and they'll expect me to just accept it on its face, and I challenge them on that. And so it's kind of a surprise and get a little aggravated with that. I mean,
what's the name of your show?
Now That's Debatable.
Now That's Debatable. Okay, got you. Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, man. So we were I started I met another friend. We were he was a big fan of rap, and I was like, cool, you know what? I'm gonna start rapping. And so me and my friend, we started
had Cross Movement had entered your world before then.
Oh yeah, way back. Like,
okay, got you.
Yeah, this is like this. I'm like 18 or 19. I've been listening to Cross Movement since like I was like five or six.
Wow, my gosh.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, this is way back.
Okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, man. So we had a rap group, and my first time I was kind of like, we ran into an issue in scripture was me and him disagreed on salvation. And so it caused the group we split.
On how you can be saved, or whether or not salvation was eternal?
It's on how you can be saved.
Interesting.
Because most Christians, you know, they follow to go to Romans 10:9, you know, believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, all that kind of stuff. And the way I look at it, Peter doesn't seem to be on the same page. And he says, I think it was in 1 Peter, maybe chapter 3, he says, like, as he's like, just as Noah and the 8 were saved through water, we in like manner are saved through baptism. Right. And so the way Peter is treating baptism, he's treating it like it's a necessary part of salvation. And then he was like, well, no, it's not. It's just the outward showing of what happening on the inside. I was like, I don't see that in the
Mhm.
Bible. And he's like, but it is that way. And I was like, and we both like we just couldn't get past each other.
Mm,
And I started the group of friends that I was with. Um, they mostly sided against me,
mhm,
and so I was like, I don't see how y'all are getting this. Like
mhm,
it's pretty clear. And then like in Acts
mm.
38, he says, be baptized for the forgiveness of
Right.
sins.
Yeah.
So you're interpreting this to mean you're baptized not for the forgiveness of sins, but just for from
Identifying with Jesus
some
and all that.
ceremony. It's just some
Yeah.
ceremony. And I
Mm,
was like, I don't get that. And so
mm,
that kind of shook me a little bit. I
mm,
didn't leave Christianity. I
mhm.
stayed with it, and I stayed with Rapid.
Did you think that you might be wrong and that they might be right, or did you felt like you were right and you just don't know why you guys couldn't see it eye to eye?
Yeah, I felt like I was right.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was concerned about was that they were teaching people a false gospel.
Mm.
Because I'm looking at Peter, it's like Peter isn't saying this. I still don't understand how anybody can look at the text and think that.
Hmm.
I think, I'm not even saying Peter's right. What I'm saying is Peter and Paul, from what I can tell, they do not agree.
Mm.
So there's a problem here.
Gotcha.
And and matter of fact, even before that,
Hmm.
one time me and my best friend, who hosts podcasts with me, we were sitting in the dorm where we were talking about something in the Gospels, and he had said something, and I forgot what the fact was, and I was like, no, that's not right. I
Mm.
was like, it's actually this,
Mm.
and he was like, no, 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 and he showed me a scripture that backed up what he said. I was like,
Hmm.
no, and I showed him a scripture that backed up what I said. I forgot what it was, and we were like, what's going on here? And
uh,
so it's like something that's not the
right.
Gospels that they didn't agree.
So with
And so
that or the baptism issue, did you take any of this to any of your professors at the school?
I did, and I also took it to my father,
Mm.
and I don't remember getting an answer from anybody, from
Wow.
anyone.
Wow.
And I thought, well,
Mm.
I am a human. I don't fully understand
Mm.
God's ways. It's above my own. So
Mm.
there's something wrong with my understanding. Gotta sort it
Mm.
out when you get to heaven. And
So
I
you
just
just
left it.
blamed you rather than blame the book or blame God.
I sure did.
It's interesting. When I was in seminary, I can still vividly remember the portion of the semester where they were dealing with that passage about Peter talking about baptism.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this whole elaborate idea of what it meant to be for Christ to be like the Ark of Noah and all that. And I just remember sitting there saying, like, this seems so speculative. And
All
I don't know if the foundations had cracked for me at that point, but I do know this is 2013, 2014, somewhere in there that I was sitting there saying, I don't know, like you, I was
Mm-hmm.
saying, I don't know how to square this, but I don't think you guys are right. And I don't even know if I'm not even going to let it matter enough to me because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll know. I think Peter was saying something that I don't like.
Yeah.
And because I don't like it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to just like, I made it this far without it. I guess I don't need to know. But I don't
Yeah.
think what you all are saying about this passage is right because it just sounded so speculative and so like, I guess you could say that, but how would you ever know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, man, and a plain reading of the text.
yeah.
Like if you were to just show somebody who never heard of Christianity, never heard the
Mm,
Bible before, and just show them that, they're
yeah.
gonna, if you just show them what Peter says, they're gonna be
Yeah.
thinking, oh yeah, you get saved by dunking people in water.
Yeah.
That's at least part of it. Maybe not the whole story, but it's part
Right.
of it. They're not gonna think it's just some ritual.
It's not the way we
Um,
teach it in our churches today. You know what I
not
mean?
not at all.
Yeah. So,
And
okay.
even Paul didn't even treat it like that. I mean, there was times in Acts where
Mm-hmm.
like you could have the places where they would have been killed for converting to Christianity, but
Mm,
he would risk baptizing them and their whole family.
mm,
So I mean, like, I'm gonna
yeah.
get all into that, but
Okay.
like on
So
track.
those sort of rocked the boat a little bit, but it didn't cause any real consternation. You were still firmly in the faith.
Yes, I was still firmly in the faith, and I thought any error that's happening, it's either with me or with the other people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not with God.
Gotcha.
And I decided I don't want to be a theologian anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
want to go into law. I wanted to be a
Mm.
lawyer, and so
Why?
uh, I, I don't know, man. You know what? So weird story. It was like I had struggled with school for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and I picked up this book called The Federalist Papers,
Mm-hmm.
and it was written by Alexander Hamilton,
Mm-hmm.
James Madison, and John Jay, and it was about why they should ratify the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried to read it, and I didn't understand
Mm-hmm.
what was being written.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was every word
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't understand, I highlighted it, and then I looked it up, and I memorized what that word meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for each Federalist paper. There's about 85
Wow.
of them. And
Wow.
then after doing that, I did
Mm-hmm.
a whole summer of that. After that, like school became like really easy to me. And I started
Mm-hmm.
making like straight A's. It was
Mm-hmm.
really weird. I guess like reading just like
Yeah.
unlocked
Wow.
something. And so
Mm.
that maybe reading that, it made me like have just like this deep uh love for the Constitution.
Mm.
And I was like, and I also saw this also right after the time that I had adopted Reformed theology.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I saw just the Reformed mindset
Mm-hmm.
in the Constitution. I was
Interesting.
looking at I was looking at depravity, as
Mm-hmm.
human depravity. Humans can't be trusted because we're
Mm-hmm.
depraved, we're selfish, all that kind of stuff. So centralized authority
Mm-hmm.
is very unreformed. You want to
Mm-hmm.
separate that.
Right.
You don't want
You
to
want
give
accountability.
right,
Yeah.
right, which is actually this actually led me down the
Mm.
atheist event horizon.
Wow. Well,
So
first, what led you to Reformed theology?
rap music,
Ah, so like the Shylins and that type.
yeah,
Okay,
that's what it was.
cool.
Yep. And so I had I read what Van Til's
Hmm.
Defense of the Faith. I
Mhm.
adopted presuppositionalism. I started using that in my street apologetics. I was like, can you give me the precondition for intelligibility? I mean, like, I mean, you can't justify the logical absolutes. I can. God, I mean, I went all the way into it. And so
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yep. And
Did
so
you graduate from Liberty?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So after I graduated with it from Liberty, I didn't have the money to go to law school, so I went to study public policy instead.
Okay.
And so while I was there, I was like, I was pretty much just studying the science of government and
Mm-hmm.
how it works. And when after Solomon, Israel is a kingdom, it broke up. Judah and Benjamin broke up from the 10 northern tribes. And if you read it, Judah, every once in a while, they have a good king. Israel, almost all their kings were evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading this, I'm looking at this, and this is my mind this is a graduate student who's studying the science of government.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, all the kings are evil and everybody's suffering. I'm like, hey, God,
Mm-hmm.
how about some checks and balances? How about some
Mm-hmm.
separation of powers? Like, you're all wise.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't you put this system in place?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you trusting the entire fate
Wow.
of a country in
To
one
the
person?
king. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is bizarre. On top of that, Solomon, you gave him all your wisdom. Why didn't he put something in place like that? That way it could still function after he died. I'm like, it was just bizarre. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, because I was looking at the Bible, and I'm trying to get deep political philosophy from it. And I couldn't pull anything from it except for examples of what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was strange. And
For the
so,
person who's watching saying, oh, you wanted the Bible to be, some people you wanted to be a science book. Some people wanted to be, you wanted it to be a political, sociology book. It's not that either. But the Bible authors have painted themselves in a corner by
yeah,
saying things like, when, like you said, God gave him wisdom, and no one as wise as him has
right.
lived since then,
Mm-hmm.
before then or after him. So when you say things like that, okay, it's not a sociology book or a law book, but once you put those kind of statements out there, call it hyperbole, call it whatever you want. Why can I not find wisdom in this
Right.
person who's supposed to be wise?
Right. Especially if
Yeah.
it's God breathed,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, sure, it's not a political science textbook,
Mm,
but still it came from God.
mm,
So it ought to have some wisdom in it.
mm,
But like
mm,
instead, I'm looking at it and I'm not seeing it. I'm like, what is going on? I would
mm,
never structure a government like this.
mm,
And so, and then on top of that, I look at even like really easy legal questions like,
mm,
should we have slaves?
mhm,
Right? And the Bible gets that wrong so many times. And then
mm,
even more problematic, I looked at how the Solomon's temple was built.
mhm,
He didn't let David build the temple. God didn't let David build the temple because he had blood on his hands, right? He
mm,
was a warrior king.
mm,
He allowed Solomon to build it,
mm,
and Solomon built it in part with slave labor.
mm.
Now think about what kind of message that's sending. The wisest man to ever
Mhm,
live
mm,
is building a temple for God
mm.
with slave labor.
But you can't have bloody hands. You can have slave holding
You
hands.
got right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What is going on here?
Mm,
Like, and then I run across Romans 13.
mm.
And this is what really got me. So this is like 2014.
Okay.
I'm still a Christian. This is like 4 years before I deconverted. And it
Hold on. I'm
said,
sorry. Before you go that far, did you
mhm.
ever do anything professional with ministry or even like taking positions in the church where you're serving in some kind of official
Oh yeah. I was a camp counselor down in Texas. I was
Mm,
a Christian camp counselor, and I would
mm,
minister to kids. But we do like ropes activities,
mm,
jet skis, boats, and all that kind of stuff,
mm.
hiking. And so and while we were doing that, I ministered to them, and then
Okay.
I did this inner city ministry,
Mm,
and called Lighthouse while I was staying in Lynchburg, going to Liberty University.
okay.
So I was doing that. Also, I was a prayer leader and on campus. So
Okay.
and so I would have a group of students, and I
Mm,
preach to them and
mm.
pray with them and try to be there for them and all of that
Okay.
as well.
All
So
right.
yeah, yeah, I
So
was doing that.
2014.
Yeah, this is 2014, and then I said, let me pull up the passage here. It
Mm,
says, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves." And so what this is a a all-encompassing endorsement of all government.
mm,
Period.
mm,
Like there's no caveats here.
mm,
And what I was thinking, I was like, well,
mm,
that's not clearly God wouldn't endorse something like the democratic socialist
mm,
government in the 1940s Germany, like the
mm,
Nazi Germany. He
mm,
wouldn't endorse something like North Korea. But there's no caveats here because like
mm,
so if I say he wouldn't do that, what I'm saying is a plain reading of this text is
mm,
so absurd that common sense demands me to put my own twist on it.
mm,
And I was like, I can't do that because if I start doing that, then anybody can just put their own twist on it.
mm.
So like, we're gonna let the Bible.
You don't think it could have been hedged, like, could it not have been hedged in by the fact that he is living at a certain time in history? And so the caveat is the government that existed at his time. He's only talking about that government. You don't think that could have?
Even at that time,
Mhm,
Paul was living within a government that committed atrocities.
mhm,
I mean, a lot of the books he wrote was from prison.
mhm.
So, and we know other things that the Romans did. So Paul should have been aware of this.
Gotcha.
Paul Paul was aware. There was governments that that supposedly got destroyed when Israel, conquered the land of Canaan. I mean,
Mm,
that probably didn't happen,
yeah.
but I mean, so Paul was familiar with corrupt government. Jesus was killed
Mm,
as a result of corrupt government.
mm.
Paul should have been known.
So when Paul says he does not bear the sword in vain, he should have known that they very well can and often do
Yes,
bear the sword in vain.
yes, the
But
brother against Jesus.
you're sanctioning this.
Yes,
Yeah.
John the Baptist. He was killed by corrupt government to cut his head
Mm,
off
mm,
because the leader didn't like what he said
mm,
about him having his brother's wife. So yes, Paul was more than well aware of corrupt government, and there's
mm,
no caveats.
mm,
So I'm like, what's going on here? Is it possible that Paul
Mm.
didn't hear from God, because
Mm.
there's another passage in there where it talks about how, I think Paul was talking about being single, and then I think he said something like this isn't from God. This is like my opinion or something
But
like
I
that.
too believe I have the Spirit of God.
Right. And I
Mhm.
was thinking maybe Paul is using that here. He doesn't say that, but possibly he's just speaking into it. This isn't really coming from God. And then I stopped and I was like, wait a minute. I don't I don't like where I'm headed. I think if I
Mm.
keep going this direction,
Mm.
I might abandon Christianity.
Wow. Just
And so,
because you're asking questions of the text, you're asking questions about how logical, how practical, how divine, like would a divine being have authored such a, were you asking that question as well?
yes.
Mm.
Because I was like, why did God let him say this? You
Mm.
said it was from you. Hey,
Mm.
God, correct them. You know, like what's going on? And like
Mm.
this, it wasn't happening.
Mhm.
So I told myself, I'm going to stop asking this question.
Wow.
And I didn't read this chapter for years. I cut it. I
Wow.
stopped, and then I'll come across any sort of thing
Mm.
that in the Bible that had something to do with government, and I
Mm.
just skipped that part.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm not going
Did
to
you
tackle this.
share this struggle with your best friend?
No, I didn't.
No one.
I talked briefly with my wife, or with my fiance at the time, about
Okay.
it. So now she's my wife, who's also still a Christian, by the way.
Mm.
But but that was really it. I didn't
And
say.
in talking to her, did you go as far as to say, because if I keep asking these questions, I don't know what's going to happen to my faith? Did you share that part, or did you stop short of sharing that part?
I don't remember if I said
Okay.
this,
Because I
and
know what it's like. I was dating Christian women, and when I came out of seminary, I would share with them, like, I'm just not sure what I think about X or Y part of the scripture. And they would
Mhm.
always say to me, but you're not about to abandon Jesus, are you? Oh, no, 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 no. Because even I knew that if I said, yeah, even that's up for grabs, I knew that there was no chance that the relationship was going to
Right.
go forward.
Hmm.
But okay, so you're sharing what you can share with your wife at the time, or your fiance
Yeah.
at the time. Okay.
Yeah. So I, I I closed up the book, and I was still reading the Bible. I was still doing
Mhm.
a little bit of my street ministry, and
Going to church.
still going to church.
Okay. What kind of church? Reform?
Yeah, Reformed Church, Presbyterian Church.
Was your
Uh,
wife going to the same kind of church or no?
mm-hmm. She was, and so
Black
like yeah,
wife?
yeah, black wife. She wasn't really into the, like I pulled her into
Okay.
Reformed theology. She was kind of came from the same background as me,
Okay.
and I was like, no, you're Reformed. It was
Okay.
kind of like that. I
I
was like,
had to ask, man. I
yeah,
just had
yeah,
to
yeah,
ask.
yeah, yeah. Like you're 5 foot Calvinist
I
now.
was like, how'd you find one of those?
Yeah,
Okay.
she did. And so yeah, we never actually joined any
Mhm.
particular church, but we were but we there was a few churches that we went to regularly.
Mhm.
I was there partly because I mean I was in the military too, so like
Okay.
gone a lot.
Oh,
But
wait. How that was missing from the story. How'd you end up in the military?
I was walking through my dorm. I was walking through the hall,
Mhm.
and I see this guy in army uniform. He's like, "Hey, you want to join the army?" I'm like, "Cool, yeah, I want to be a hero." And the next weekend, I was at MEPS, and he signed me up.
Wow.
That was it.
So this is between college and grad school, or after grad
Yeah.
school, or
So
what?
like, I didn't go active duty. I was reservist.
Okay. Okay.
And so like I graduated like a year late
Mhm.
because I
Mm.
I was doing the military thing. I had to go through
Okay.
basic and AIT and everything.
Got
And
you.
so yeah, I did that, and then I came back.
Okay.
And so and yep. And so yeah, so so I'm in grad, so I finished grad school,
Mhm.
and that was I started my second master's degree in computer science.
Mhm.
But and then I was just doing a lot of thinking,
Mhm.
and I was like, because like when I was still doing my street ministry,
Mhm.
and I was like, you know what, man, like this isn't very honest,
Mhm.
because there's huge portions of the text that I'm
Mhm.
just avoiding.
Wow.
And I'm like, what I think I was like, what's going on is that
Mhm.
it's like it's not. I felt like I wasn't trusting God,
Mhm.
because I was like,
Mhm.
I was telling my what I had told myself was that if if I read part of God's word, I
Mm,
might abandon him. And I
mm,
was like, I'm like, this is bad because like what I'm telling you guys is that I'm not trusting you.
mm.
And I was like, I know you're true. Every man's a liar. I'm gonna dive into this head on.
Have you heard my deconversion story?
I have.
So
I
you
watched
know
it.
you're saying some of the very things like when I
Yeah.
left seminary, I said
I saw
to
you. I
God,
saw. I specified. I saw you come in like months before then.
you did.
I was seeing some of your posts. I was like, this guy is either like past the event horizon or he's already an atheist. He just hasn't said it yet.
So yeah, if you deconverted in 2018, I think I started showing my signs right around 2018. If you go back far enough, you
Mm-hmm.
can find some Christian posts in 2018, 19, 2020. You can also find some posts that's like, what? Fanatic?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was seeing him. I was like, he asking questions. I'm like, he's asking questions he shouldn't be asking.
Exactly. So yeah, so you said it's very similar. I said to God, I can't read the Bible anymore. If I find one more thing in here that doesn't have a good, I don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And I stopped reading the Bible for years, 6 years on my own. Still going to church, still all that. The very next time I became an active reader of the Bible, it was over. And because
That-
I knew once I got back into it,
mm.
it was going to be a wrap. But when I finally tried, sure enough.
Well, it looked like you kind of stole my story from me
Well, no,
because
but I mean, because when you were saying it,
yeah,
I'm like, yo, yeah. But go ahead.
yeah. So like, I looked at this. I came back to Romans 13,
Mm,
and it looked just as bad
mm,
as it did four
mm,
years ago when I had saw it.
mm,
And I was like, what's going on is here is that God is true, every man's a liar.
mm,
Paul is wrong. He
mm,
was speaking with the best intentions. He's just wrong.
mm.
And what I had done
Wow.
subconsciously was I had given myself permission to perform critical analysis on the Bible. But
Yeah.
I did it with everything else, with every movie or
Hmm.
the news come on, or read a book, professor saying anything to me, I'll do perform critical analysis on it. I'm
Mm,
in there deciphering the bullshit from the truth.
mm,
And that's how I approached it. But whenever I read the Bible, just let my guard down and I was
mm.
accept it like childlike faith.
Yeah.
And what I had done was right here, subconsciously, I didn't know that I had done that.
Hmm.
I gave myself permission to perform critical analysis on the Bible. And I was
Hmm.
like, Paul's wrong here.
Mm,
And then I was like, cool,
mm,
I feel relieved.
mm.
And then next day I went to the Bible study. I went to my personal Bible study and I was like, this is wrong. Next. This is wrong. Next. This is wrong. Next.
In
And then,
non-Pauline chapters
yeah,
or
not
just
Pauline
Paul?
chapter.
Mm,
No, yeah, just random places in the Bible. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Nope.
mm.
Nope. And then a week later,
Hold on, I'm sorry. And you're married by this point.
is I'm married.
Are you thinking? So at one point you had to think, I can't keep reading this because I might deconvert. But now that you're reading it with critical distance, a term I got from Dan McClellan just a few days
Mhm.
ago, reading the text with critical distance, um, are you thinking, man, if I keep going down this path, I might jeopardize some of the relationships in my life? Or were you just kind of carte
I didn't think
blanche,
about that
like,
at all because
okay,
I was thinking, still
mm,
God is true. And then,
okay.
but
So
but
you didn't
then
see a deconversion coming.
I didn't see it.
You just saw a clearer, less polluted, I guess,
Yeah,
understanding of the Bible.
yeah, that's the way I
Interesting.
saw it. And
Hmm.
then, but then it got to me. I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm like, at this rate, I'm gonna throw out half the Bible. And I was like,
Were
do I
you doing
believe
that to the New Testament or Old? As you were like, no, this
both?
is wrong, this is wrong. Okay.
Both.
Wow. Wow.
Because like because when I saw this Romans 13, I started looking through all parts of that deals with any sort of law or government. And I was like, this is
Mm.
wrong, 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 wrong.
Wow.
He's not here from God. And then I was like,
Why do you
wait a
think
minute.
that? Why do you think that mattered to you so much?
For government,
Yes.
Be- because like I guess the big part is that when like my mom, she was like a huge Black history buff.
Mm.
She used to in our hometown, she would link up with churches and build these Black history museums in February, and we had
Mm.
to learn about all of this kind of
Mm.
stuff. And government affect government was a
Mm.
big deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what enslaved this, like all of this.
Yeah.
So this was a huge deal coming as a black man.
Mm.
And so I'm looking at this and I'm
Mm.
like, the civil rights movement. This is an episode of my podcast. It's called Deconstruction Deconstructed. Lecrae got it wrong. It's from a song. He made a
Mm.
song called
Yeah.
Deconstruction. So he's talking about how his how he became disaffected with the way
The Western
evangelical Christianity,
church.
with the way it
Yeah.
was handling,
Mm-hmm.
civil rights and social justice and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the argument that I was making, I guess the apologist in the episode, I was telling him that the Bible fully endorses the apathetic attitude that annoyed Lecrae so much.
Mm.
He got it wrong. He should have just left. Because then I think he said at the end of the song, he was like, he learned the Bible in the Eastern context, the way it was meant to be interpreted. But he never explains what it is. He just ends that song. I was like, what was it? How is the way it's being, how should it be interpreted? And so what I was pointing out in the against the apologists on the show, I was like, dude, like the Bible's not on like Martin Luther King's side. It's not like even like forget civil rights, forget like police shooting right now. Let's go back to slavery. The Bible's not on our side. Like they talk about like this Negro Bible, the Bible that was given to slaves. I'm like, you don't have to remove much. I'm like, I don't see why was there a Negro Bible? Just give them the same thing everybody else is reading.
Yeah.
And like it fully endorses it. And so that's why it was such a big deal to me, because it was like a huge part of my life. And so I look at that and I called my best friend up and I was like, bro, I was like, because he had went into this reformed fatalism type of worldview. He thought that he would still believe in the Bible, but he thought that God had rejected him, which was odd. He
had rejected him?
Yes.
Because of some sin, or because of his inability to believe, or what?
I couldn't fully understand it.
Okay.
He just believed, he just felt in his heart that he was going to hell and there's nothing he could do. And so, and we had spent like, we were roommates for a while. And this was like actually during the period when I was like almost deconverted back in 2014. We were roommates back then. We spent a lot of time arguing about this. But I had called him up and I was like, bro, you still like believe in the Bible? He's like, well, he like, man, like metaphorically, so that I was like, bro, I don't know if I believe this at all. Like, I think I might be an atheist, dude.
Wow.
And he's like, word? I was like, oh, well, I don't know, man. And so I forget, I don't remember exactly how the conversation ended. But then that was it. And I was like I was, I think within a week, after coming back to it, I was completely gone. And so I had told my mom, me and my mom, we would go kind of back and forth about why I should go back to the faith. And my mom, being like such like, like deep rooted in like her Black history and stuff, and that being a big deal to her, I was explaining to her, I was like, the Bible's not on her side on this, like Martin Luther King, he was a rebellion against what God established. He should have, you shouldn't have been, doing these sit-ins and all that kind of stuff, And so, but yeah, I guess the main part, when I had left Christianity, what I had thought about was, is there even a God in general? And then I realized I didn't have a good reason to believe in that. And then I just kind of dropped it.
Wow.
And then I ran into some other problems. I was like, what do I do with morality and meaning, purpose, and all that kind of stuff?
So did you not have to deconstruct because you're getting into the questions now. You had been taught from your earliest years that you were a sinner.
Yeah.
So if you're undoing the Bible, I don't think God is saying this, I don't think God is saying that. How did you get to the point that you were okay saying, I don't think Jesus is a savior? Like, was that an easy thing to get to, or?
It was. I took it off like a new pair of shoes, man. It really was, man, because it was, I was actually relieved, because the same type of issue that I had struggled with as a kid, as far as being saved and going to hell, it was still kind of there, because I had in the back of my head that maybe I'm wrong about this baptism thing. Maybe they're wrong too. Maybe we all misunderstand it.
Mm,
And maybe I'm not really saved. I don't know. And then I thought about, what about my parents, my brothers? Maybe they're not. Like I
mm,
didn't want people that was close to me going to hell.
yeah.
Giving it up was like a
Mm,
huge sign of relief. I was like,
mm. Wow. Wow.
I mean, it was, yeah, it was. That's how it was to me. So like,
Okay.
I dropped it pretty easily.
Mm,
And I'm a big philosophy buff,
mm-hmm.
and so replacing the morality was pretty easy.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, there's actually tons of ways. Matter of fact, like not only is God not necessary for morality,
Mm,
like he's not even helpful. So, like,
mm.
I'm a more realist. I believe
Mm,
in objective morality,
mm.
but in order to, I don't know how far you want to get into morality, but okay, sure. So like, for, like this is actually a topic that comes on my show a lot,
Mhm,
and I like arguing about it
mm,
because it's very easy because I got the high ground.
mm.
Because if they're a Christian, their God is pretty wicked. It's pretty
Right.
easy to go after things he do. Right. And so when we talk about morality, moral realism, objective morality, let's talk about the purpose. Let's talk about the teleos of morality,
Mm,
moral teleology. And is why the reason why we have morality is that the the actions that I do, they have consequences. They don't occur in a vacuum. They don't affect just me. They
mhm,
affect the world around me and the people in it.
mhm,
There are things that I can do that can impact your well-being in a negative way. I can do
mhm,
irreparable damage to your well-being.
mhm,
I can end it, as in I can do something that can result in your death.
mhm,
That being said, it's a good idea to have rules that govern my behavior.
mhm,
Good idea to have rules that govern your behavior because we care about ourselves.
mhm,
I don't want to suffer. I don't want to die. So I have rules for people when they interact with me. That being said, what we're looking at is well-being.
mhm,
So an action is good or bad by how it contributes to well-being. There you go. So you have an objective standard. When Christians ask for objective morality,
mhm,
what they're asking for actually is an intrinsic morality.
hmm.
That does not exist.
Okay.
Objective morality is exactly what I gave them.
Now, I would challenge that though to say
Mhm.
I don't know that what you're explaining is objective morality. I think you're explaining relative morality that is objective from a human standpoint, which is where I think the humanist comes in.
Mhm.
Because if you apply what you're saying to the way humans treat other animals,
Mhm.
like, are you as concerned about the well-being of animals as you
Yes,
are
sentience. And
sentience? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So if it can suffer,
Hmm.
then morality applies to it. So
Okay.
that's what I get. If I were to pull out a rock
Mm,
and bash it to bits with a hammer,
mm.
I did nothing wrong. If I do it to a puppy, well, now I'm a monster, right?
Are
That
you
puppy-
vegan, vegetarian, anything in?
I'm not a vegan, and I ought
Okay.
to be.
So no,
I'm a
but
hypocrite in that
there's
regard.
no such well, I guess you can say you ought to be if you are a moral realist. Um, but or you could just say I'm just not as moral as I think I
Yeah.
should
I
be.
mean, what a yeah. It's like I can still
Okay.
acknowledge. So because, and this is the thing, and apologist tried to point this out on my show. He
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, you eat cheeseburgers, therefore your morals are relative." I'm like,
Mm.
no. What you really mean is that I'm a bad
Right.
adherent to my moral standard.
Right.
My standard is still objective. Like, yeah,
Okay.
there's like the standard is well-being. It's objective. So like, if I
Mm,
bash you in the head with a hammer, that
mm,
is not good for you. That's
mm.
not a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
It is a fact, is a
Mm,
ontological fact of reality that hitting you in the head with a hammer will harm you in a negative way. It's just a
mm.
fact. Nobody's opinion. That's why it's subjective.
Yeah.
The part that would make it subjective is if you needed a mind to come in and then try to determine whether it's good or bad.
Mm,
Which this is what divine commandment theory does.
mhm.
Like whereas God is determining morality. It's based on his mind.
Right.
Christian morality is subjective because it's based on God.
Right. Right. It
Ours is
just changes who
objective.
the subject is.
Right. Right. My morality is based on the objective facts of reality. That's
Mm,
why it's objective. It's not intrinsic
mhm.
because it is
Yeah.
based on a standard. Like for instance, like a ruler. A ruler is objectively 12 inches, but
Mm,
this, there's nothing, there's no, in a foot is objectively 12 inches,
mm.
but there's nothing intrinsic about a foot that makes it 12. It could be
Right.
13 inches.
In the same way that there's nothing intrinsic about life that makes you say you should not harm it or you should not take it.
Yeah, well, yes, and then that's where we get into, like, the hypothetical and categorical um, hypothetical and categorical imperatives, right?
Mm,
Getting an ought from an is, right?
hmm.
And
Right.
so, yeah, so whether or not you value a life, or
Hmm.
value consciousness, that's an axiological question that's
Mm,
entirely subjective.
yeah.
Sure. But whether something will negatively impact
Hmm.
that life, that is a fact.
Well, see, that makes me, we can get back to the life after faith in a second, but this
Oh
is good
yeah.
stuff because that makes me say, I think I'm more comfortable saying that the goal of humanism
Mm-hmm.
is a subjective goal. But then once you identify that as a goal, then you can have objective means to that goal and objective
Yes.
standards for
Sure.
accomplishing that goal.
Sure.
So to me, that's where I put the objectivity.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that goes. So caring about life,
Hmm.
right? So when we talk like any sort of like would you we're talking about, that's an axiological
Hmm.
question, which in axiology is subjective.
Hmm.
It's about values,
Yeah.
about what you find important. So of course
Hmm.
that's subjective.
Hmm.
But now once we've determined what we value,
Right.
there are objective ways to
Yeah.
measure that.
Yep.
That is
Yep.
your objective morality.
Yeah.
And what Christians are constantly asking for is intrinsic morality. And I keep trying to
Mm.
point that out.
Yeah, that's
They
good.
want
It's a good
they want
distinction.
yes, they want it's something like there's that they want morality woven into the fabric of space
Mm,
time or
right.
something like that. Like there is no
Right.
such thing as that,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah. Cool. I got to go check out your channel to see how some of those conversations goes. Maybe you can
Oh yeah, man.
point me to one of the best ones as you've had those encounters with Christian apologists.
Definitely, man.
So okay, so you in 2018, you say to your best friend, man, I don't think I believe this at all.
Hmm.
Um, what changes then? Like what changes about your life, about your mindset?
Um, about my life, pretty much nothing.
Okay.
Because like like I didn't do anything different,
Mhm.
but I wasn't like, oh no, I can do cocaine and mess with hookers and stuff. I mean, like I wasn't like I was still just
Mm,
your ordinary guy, still
mm,
working. I just didn't have those same beliefs. Like, I mean, my positions on things changed.
mhm,
Like my like for instance, there like my feelings towards like homosexuals. Like I before then I was a bigot, but like
mm.
I mean it wasn't one
Yeah.
that I wasn't like a personal
Right.
bigot. I was a bigot because I thought this is
Yeah.
what God
Yeah.
wanted,
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, if you had
Mm.
asked me back then, I was like, no, I love homosexuals, and the reason why I'm condemning them is because I don't want them to go to hell. Right? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, so things like that changed the ways, the things that I saw about government,
Mm,
it also changed as well,
mm,
because I no longer believe that it was God that was endorsing any specific type of policy.
mm.
And
So that you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. So does that mean I'm very curious because I don't even know where you were before, but did you end up changing political parties as a result? Or no, or did you
I
not need
was
to do
out
that?
no, because I was like kind of libertarian,
Okay.
and maybe if we talk, have you back on one day, we can talk about this. I'm an anarchist now. And so,
Really?
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow. We
yeah,
definitely have to talk about this at some
yeah,
point.
yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, and so that kind of happened,
Okay.
and so I mean, and me kind of becoming anarchist, it was happening around the same time that I was deconverting, and
Mm,
then by the time I was like full-fledged anarchist, I was
mm,
also atheist at the same time,
okay.
and but yeah, I guess that's probably the main thing
Mm.
politically that changed, and the way I approach government.
How long did it
And
take you to stop attending church, or was that immediate?
uh nah, I was still going.
Okay.
Um
And why? For family reasons or something
Yeah,
else?
it made my wife happy. I'll be going to church this Easter.
Okay.
And so like my mother-in-law, and
Mm,
she wants me to attend, so
mm,
I'll go because of things like that. But like, it's not, I don't regularly
okay.
attend church, and and it's something that
Mm,
there's another guy I'm friends with, Jerry. I don't want to mispronounce his name. I was on his podcast recently. This guy regularly, he was on my show too. He
mm,
regularly attends church, and
mm,
he's pretty much an atheist.
mm.
And like, my beef with him is that you are
Mm.
contributing to an organization that you
Yeah.
admit is toxic,
All right.
right? And so like, that's, I'll go.
Hmm.
I won't, obviously I won't do anything that'll promote it.
Hmm.
And then if somebody asks, I'll be straight up. I'll
Mm,
be like, hey, yeah, like I come to church like pretty much like once a year
mm,
on Easter, or if my wife really wants me to.
mm.
Yeah, but also I don't believe in any of this stuff. And the stuff you're saying is wrong. Here's why. And we'll go right into a conversation. Like I said, man, I'm very confrontational. Like, I'll start arguing with the pastor right there. So,
So when you deconverted, you told your best friend, did you tell your wife first? And if not, how long did it take you? If you don't mind talking, because I think it could help some people.
mhm.
How did you communicate that to your wife? And was it even a question of whether or not your
um,
marriage would survive that or no?
No, I knew my marriage would survive it. I
Okay.
wasn't worried about that,
Mm,
but I didn't know how I would tell her, and so I didn't tell her the best way.
mm,
She had, because she could probably tell, and she was like, "Hey, I
mm,
don't feel like you're kind of taking this stuff very seriously." And I
mm.
was like, "Yeah, I really don't believe this anymore." And
But I
I just
mean, like, were you like cursing around the house or like
no,
what did she see that made her say something's
we,
different?
we would have like this Bible study we would do together, and we would read through it, and I
Ah.
just wasn't even bringing it up.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was
Okay.
like, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm not into this. And so
Mm,
it was shock for a while, but then
mm.
after that, it's like, you're still you.
Right, right. I've heard
So
that from so many married people who've
yeah.
deconverted. Their spouse had to reckon with, you're the
Hmm.
same person.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
and even like, we have a child together, and
Mm,
we were raising that child together, and and it's like, so there's a mutual respect,
mm,
right? So like, it was a few weeks ago. She's like, "Hey, Daddy, pray with me." And
mm.
mom stepped in. It's like, "Hey, Daddy doesn't pray."
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. And so
That's beautiful.
all right, there's a mutual understanding. We
Mm,
respect each other. I
mm-hmm,
don't I don't get in the way
mm,
of her, reading the text too. There's a conversation we've had. We talked
mm-hmm,
about hell. Like,
mm.
I don't want her
Wow.
dealing with the trauma that I went through growing up. And so she was like, she doesn't want that either. Because I had told her, I told her like, straight up, if I sense that in any way,
Mm,
I'm gonna bring the Bible in front of her, and
mm.
I'm going to destroy.
Eviscerated.
Yes, it will be done. I will show her every sort of contradiction, every scientific inaccuracy. We're gonna get rid of this. You're gonna be atheist right now.
Wow.
But she understood that, and so she
Mm,
doesn't want that either. Matter of
okay.
fact, she's not even forcing it on her. We want
Hmm.
her to decide for herself.
Okay.
And so,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're cool with that. Although she's still super religious, and
Hmm.
she still says, "Hey, I would like you to be Christian
Mm,
again as well." And of course, if you
mm.
really believe that, why wouldn't you want a loved one to
Exactly.
accept it again
Okay.
as well? So yeah, I
Mm.
mean, we're doing good on that. Matter of fact, like, she knows I host a show. She knows that I'm coming up here. She's like,
Right.
she knows, like, I was like, "Hey, I'm going on one of my favorite rappers' podcasts. He's an atheist too now." Like, she knows all that.
Wow.
Yeah, she's cool.
Has she caught any, and maybe this is her story, so I don't know how much of it you want to tell, but has she caught any flack either from her parents or her friends or from the church members that now her husband is an atheist and a vocal one at that?
Um, Not a lot that I know
Okay.
about. I mean,
Mm,
most of it's been directed towards me,
hmm,
and so like, I've gotten messages, like, especially like the last church that I had attended,
hmm,
like, because I was still going to that church for a while when I had deconverted from Christianity.
hmm,
And so I was getting, I'll get into like a lot of like debates with people like that that was still attending that church.
Mm.
And I had friends that would call me and we'd have conversations. And so like most of it was directed towards me, not at
Mm.
her, but staying with me.
Mm.
I think for the most
For
part,
staying with you.
mm-hmm.
Even when the Bible says if you have an unbelieving spouse and they want to stay with you, don't leave them. They're still mad at her for.
Well, I don't, I think what probably what was going on was, I don't know what type of messages like she was getting
Mm.
as a result of that, but I'm probably, but I don't want to speculate,
Okay.
but I do know there was a lot of content that was directed towards me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, matter of fact, there was like recently somebody had sent the episode of my podcast to my dad,
Mm.
as
Like
if
they're
like
trying to
he,
tell on you or something.
yeah, and that, and like that kind of bothered me, and I was like, you know
Mm.
what, like you had never
Mm.
had a conversation with me about this.
Mm.
You never thought to come to me and you know say, hey, what's going on?
Mm.
Instead, it's like you're trying to like it's like telling me,
Yeah.
and like that kind of bothered me.
Mm.
And so stuff like that. Then there was a few other times that I know there was like some events that I had been left out of
Mm.
some friends that I used to be close with,
Mm.
as a result of
Mm.
you know
Yeah.
leaving Christianity. So
Mm.
that kind of bothered me. But I mean, the way I see it, like if our friendship like had meant anything,
Yeah.
then it's not, it should be based on what I what beliefs that I have.
Mm-hmm.
At least I could see why they could matter to a certain extent. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be friends with a Nazi or something like that. But I mean, if I was
Mm.
if I was a Christian and somebody had left, like I said, like my best friend, when he had
Mm.
left, my thought was to get closer to him
Mm.
and then actually be able to witness to him. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that's kind of like, that's what I did. And
Mm.
I feel like that's not the kind of treatment that I got for the most
Gotcha.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trust me, bro. I know.
Yeah, I be seeing your posts, baby. They be going in on you, man.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
But I mean, but I understand it because of how vocal I am and because of, I'm sure they feel like one of my former ministry partners told me, you know, like he's part of the bride of Christ and I'm going after the groom. So
mm-hmm.
it's going to change the way that
Yeah,
they see me and approach me. Even though I don't approach any of them with any vitriol,
right,
the very fact that I'm that way towards the faith, they
right.
take that personal that I'm
Yes,
that way
because
towards them.
you're speaking honestly about it,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like it's seen as an attack. Like
Mm.
there was, I think I had made this post. It was tongue in cheek, but it wasn't that tongue in cheek. And I said something like, the gospel be like, um, believe in me so I can save you from what I'm gonna do to you if you don't
If you don't
believe.
believe me, exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and people was like, oh, straw man. No, not really.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really
that's
what
exactly
it
what,
that's
yeah.
exactly what it is.
Um,
It,
I can't tell you the number of times I had to stop myself from making posts.
mm-hmm.
I have a laundry list of posts that I just plan to put up to
Oh yeah.
cause people to think through things. And I'm trying to like be good. I'm trying to like go certain days without putting up something so that people don't feel like this guy's just relentless. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I've thought these Christian thoughts for, 30 plus years of my life.
Yeah.
I don't, it's not just that I don't think them anymore. I have to unthink them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a process.
Yeah.
You don't just stop thinking that way. You've got to intentionally think the opposite
Right.
because you trained yourself to think a certain way.
Yeah, because this was like your entire worldview. This was your life.
Yeah.
This is like what you thought about 24/7. Well, not necessarily 24/7, but anything.
No, I mean, even
Your
24/7, you
thought.
processed everything
Yes, it
through
was
this
processed through
lens.
through that. Everything you saw was through that. So it's
Yeah.
not like just because I left the faith doesn't mean boom. I'm going
Right.
to stop thinking about it. I mean, there's like so many times where people they'll come at me with the same argument as,
Mhm.
since you don't even believe in it anymore, why are you still talking about it?
All the
I don't
time.
spend any time talking
All
about
the
fairies.
time.
And I try to remind them. I'm like, bro, like regardless of whether, like, even if I don't, if what if I told you
Mm,
that there's a magical cheeseburger
mm,
that wants me to kill you,
mm.
right? You don't believe in it, but I do.
Yeah.
So
How
whether
much
the
time would you spend trying to
right,
convince me this magical cheeseburger is not real?
exactly, right,
Right.
because I believe it, my consequences have
Mm,
my actions have real consequences.
mm.
This is something that you ought to care about,
Yeah.
and so that's why I attack it, because I guess people don't understand why they think, like, we're coming with, we go into counter apologetics
Mm.
as like some sort of like spite or anger at the church, and
Right.
then that's not really
Yeah.
what it's about.
It's not offense. It's counter. Like
Yes,
counter apologetics is not offense. It's defense.
right, because y'all are spending so much time
Right.
pouring Jesus at us, and we're just like, oh no, it doesn't make sense because of blah blah
Mm,
blah. And what really bugs me is that,
mm,
Christians, especially Christian apologists, they don't realize how much work they have ahead of them.
mm,
They think it's way easier than it is, because, like, they're Gary Habermas, right?
mhm,
And he had published his book. It was on their resurrection. This is a long ass book.
mhm,
I'm not gonna read it, but I was actually in his class. I was a student
mm,
under Gary Habermas, and I was thinking, like, he spent so much time on the resurrection, but he doesn't understand
mm,
that there is no logical entailment from the resurrection to Jesus being God.
mm,
The most you could have, this is why I'm going to do a debate pretty soon. We
mm,
already got it scheduled.
mm,
I'm going to I'm going to grant
mm,
that Jesus was clinically dead
mm,
for 3 days and then came back to life.
mm.
And I'm going to have the apologist now show me the logical entailment from him being God. That's what I want. It's a non sequitur. It does not get you there.
Yeah.
They try their best,
What if they
but
say, well, I don't even want to dive into what if they say. Yeah. I'll look forward to that. I'll be on. Is it going to be live?
oh yeah, it'll
Okay.
be live, and
Cool.
we might do it multiple times, really, just to
Hmm.
prove the point, because it doesn't get you there. Because,
Yeah.
matter of fact, like, even if we accept scripture, then we
Hmm.
can't rule out the possibility. Like, even like Moses, when he went to Egypt and he was doing those miracles, he turned the snake and the
Hmm.
staff into a snake and all kind of stuff. The Egyptian whatever you call them, witchcraft,
Magicians.
yeah, magician, yeah, they
Hmm.
were doing the same thing.
Hmm.
So, and then it eventually got to a point where the Egyptian magicians couldn't replicate Moses' miracles,
Hmm.
but maybe they just weren't as good at it. Maybe if you find somebody that was,
Right.
they
Right.
could do it,
Yeah.
or maybe their God wasn't even strong enough. Maybe you can find another God that actually could do that. Perhaps there is another being
Hmm.
who is not quite God, but also very powerful and capable of raising people from the dead. So, even if you grant that there was a God that raised somebody from the dead, it doesn't mean that it was
Yeah.
Jesus.
It comes
In
down to
this,
whose report will you believe?
right? Yeah,
You have to believe the report of the gospels that this is
yes,
the what it entails.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many problems, and God, if He is omniscient, surely He was aware of these epistemic problems.
Hmm.
Why didn't He solve it? Like, there's
Once you start asking those kinds of questions, like I think several times when I started posting early on, one of the comments I would get from Christians is, "Oh, so you think you would have had a better way to da 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 da? Well, what would you have done differently?" And I'm like, I mean, there's so many things that could have been done differently that
yeah.
would have had a more sure result, that would have been more believable, that would have been, better suited to hold somebody accountable for not believing if you had
Mhm.
done this instead of what you claim to have done. Um, you could
Right.
tell
So
a
many. How about from the beginning? Like, when as soon as
right.
Satan rebels, give Satan the gospel. If he doesn't accept it, throw him in hell. Boom.
Right. Yeah.
Now he can't tempt Adam and Eve. Like,
Yeah.
like, there's so many ways to
Yeah.
go.
You could write a better Bible. If that's what you want to do, you could write a better Bible. You could tell a better story.
Hmm.
Um, and especially in light of what we know now about humanity, about history, about DNA, about You know what I mean? Like you could tell much better stories, and you would think if a God, an all-knowing God, was behind it, he would have told better stories.
Right.
He would have told the kinds of stories that we just keep finding evidence that it must be true because of this, because of this. Look, we found this, but we don't find that. You only find that when you go to Answers in Genesis, where they're, you know, folding lies over truth to make it seem like, yeah,
Right.
this validates our story.
I mean, it's so problematic. I mean, like, I don't know. It's like, I guess if I was God,
mm,
and then, well, if I was God, I would just give people the truth.
right.
You know, I mean, but like, I look at that and I think there could have been,
Mm.
if they had better information, they would have been much better lies they could have told. So it shows you not only did they not have the truth and that they were ignorant, that they were very ignorant.
Right.
That they weren't just off; they
Right.
had no clue what the answer was.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at like certain parts of like just like in Genesis 1,
Mm.
like it immediately starts getting stuff wrong. Right? It talks about like it says like it talks about that the earth was already here and there's water on it, and that's
Mm.
before stars, right? We
Mm.
know stars is where the complex atoms came from. Stellar
Mm.
nucleosynthesis happens there. From the star blows up,
Mm.
boom. That's how you start creating planets. That's how you're getting water. Like right from the beginning, it starts getting stuff wrong.
But you've
Very
already got progressives that are going to tell you, oh, see, you were a fundamentalist. That's why you wanted Genesis to have gotten things right chronologically and geologically and cosmology. You wanted it to have gotten it right, but it was not trying to do that in the first place.
mm,
And those people irritate me more than almost anyone else, because it's like, even if that's true, that that's not what Genesis was trying to do, then I've got another problem with Bible God, is the fact that if he did communicate to me the gospel that I believe, then he lied to me, because this God knows that I believed in a very fundamentalist way. So you allowed me to believe something that you weren't communicating in the first place
mm-hmm.
for 30 years. So if the progressives are right, I still have an issue with the God who let me think something that's not true.
Right. Yep.
Right? Generations of people have thought very fundamentalist ways, and God was cool with that. And you progressive are telling me, but he never meant that.
No.
You know what I mean? So he can
Right.
lie. Basically, he can lie.
Right. It's like what else? Like what else will we discover in the
Right.
next few hundred years or so,
Right.
and to find out, oh, this is just laughably
Right.
stupid. We have to
Right.
throw it out now.
Yeah.
I mean, because like what they're doing, what the progressives are really doing, when they look at these verses, they're like, yeah, this is what they're saying is that the plain reading of this text is just so dumb.
Mm.
Common sense demands us to read our own interpretation on it. We're going to have to throw in stuff. And
Yeah.
once you start doing that, where does it stop? You
Right.
can start throwing
Right.
anything in there.
Right.
Like we know people can't really raise from the dead. What really happened was blah blah. I mean, like why stop? You know?
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem. We actually we had an apologist come on our show and actually used that same argument. Was talking
Mm.
about Genesis 1 and 2. It was saying it wasn't this isn't actually what they meant. We had it was like an hour and a half long conversation. They hit us up. They commented on the video about a week later, said, "Oh yeah, man, I'm atheist now. Thanks for holding my feet to the fire." Straight up,
Are you serious?
straight up. That's what happened. And so we
I
are like, you know what?
hope you screenshot that. I hope
I
you,
did.
yes.
I sure did. I sure did. I was like,
But I appreciate the honesty. Like, the
mm-hmm.
reason why I wrote the book, Let There Be Gaslight, is because I, like, as soon as the idea of evolution got into my head, I argued it, but I said, but damn, it would make so much sense.
Yeah.
It would make so much sense. And then when I went back to the Bible, trying to make the Bible still make sense, after saying evolution would make so much sense, I started seeing how many things in the Bible don't make sense. And I said, I'm going to go to these theologians. I was in seminary at the time. I'm going to see how they make sense out of these things, that evolution or no, this don't make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And something in me said, they're going to lie to you. They're going to try to fudge it. They're going to, and I mean, no matter who I went to, it was just BS after BS after BS. And I said, well, will at least one of y'all just be honest and say, come here, it's not true. One of y'all, just one of y'all. instead of trying to, well, if you look at it like this, if you tilt your head and squint your eyes and hold it up like this, you can still get truth out of it. Like, why would I want to do that with the rest of my life? Yeah.
Right. You know what? So this is what's crazy was that part of my deconversion story, like before I had completely left, I had I was on a business trip, and I saw a synagogue, and I
Mm,
was like, let me talk to a rabbi.
mm,
Like, I just want to see what their point of view, even though they're not a Christian.
mm,
And so I explained to them where I was.
mm.
And I was like, even like this part, I doesn't even bring up the New Testament stuff. I was like, as far as the Old Testament, this stuff isn't making sense to me. And he was like, oh, well, just don't believe it then. And I was like, wait, what? Really? Like, you're not going to kind of convince me? Like, nah. He's like, it doesn't make sense to you. Just don't believe it.
Mm,
And I was like that was different. I don't
yeah.
think I wouldn't have experienced that in Christianity.
No,
But,
hell no.
you know, and it to me, the the biggest mystery
Mm,
is that you had brought up evolution, and so Christians, they fight tooth and nail
mm.
about this because
Some,
some,
yeah.
and because what they don't realize is the ones that don't realize that it completely destroys the gospel, because you
Sure.
have death before the fall,
Yeah,
lots of it,
yeah,
lots of death before the fall. And then it also destroys this idea of Adam being the federal headship of us.
yeah.
There's so many problems with that. Like
Mm,
it completely. There was one theologian I was reading, and that's why he talked about why he rejected evolution. You cannot have the gospel, you cannot reconcile it with it. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense why they fight it, tooth and nail. The ones who accept it
hmm.
don't understand the gospel. They don't understand the consequences of it.
Well, see, what's interesting though? So we're doing a series right now on Peter Enns,
Mm-hmm.
on his book, The Sin of Certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because, it was his book, The Evolution of Adam, that got me thinking along the lines that caused my deconversion. But he did not deconvert. He has this very fuzzy understanding of what we're supposed to be doing with our faith. We're not supposed to have, basically, we're not supposed to be certain about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Certainty is a sin. Wanting to know, wanting to think correct thoughts about God and the Bible, that's the problem. You're trying to think correct thoughts is the problem.
Oh, does he do that with anything else in part of his life?
You know what I mean?
Like
But
when he's
see,
crossing the street, does he care about
right.
correct thoughts?
But
A
the
bus is
idea,
coming. Okay, go
but
ahead.
he knows the gospel.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he was in, Westminster, professor, all that, reform type guy. He knows the gospel, but he understands. This is the thing that got me about his book, The Evolution of Adam, because he said, so we now know, because of population genetics and Human Genome Project and all that, we now know that Adam and Eve cannot be literal historical people at the fount of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul was wrong about sin and death entering the world through Adam.
Hmm.
But but we still need the gospel because we see in our world clearly the evidence and reality of sin and death. So even though Paul was wrong about Adam and Eve and how sin and death got here, we still see sin and death. Therefore, we still need the gospel. We still
When
need the
does he think
cross.
sin and death enter the world then?
He doesn't know. We don't know. But
Huh.
the gospel, the cross, is still the solution for it.
That is strange.
Yeah.
I like to pick his, but I like to bring him on the podcast. That makes
Hit him
no,
up. Hit him
yeah,
up.
that makes
Because
no
very
sense to
many
me.
people have been trying to hold his feet to the fire. Like, yo,
Mhm.
you're not saying Christian things, but you're still claiming to be a Christian.
Yeah,
And I don't know how he survives.
man,
Yeah.
that's wild.
Yeah. Hey, but this was good, man.
Yeah, bro.
So you've been out of the faith for 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you miss it at all? Do you miss anything from
No, I don't miss nothing. Man,
it?
matter of
Okay.
fact, yeah, I do. I hated, real talk. I hated going to church, bro. It was like I went because I thought I was supposed to,
Mm,
but I really hated it. I would
mm.
intentionally come late, just so I would miss praise and worship, because I didn't enjoy it, man.
Uh,
And so yeah,
Yeah.
but there's nothing about it that I miss.
Oh,
It,
let
it
me ask you this.
mhm,
You talked about having to come up with a morality when you left the faith.
mhm.
Um, you went to atheism, you went to humanism. What do you do with the question of purpose?
Oh, I decide my purpose, which is great
Okay.
because it's great because like somebody else isn't doing it for me. You know, like you ever seen that B movie?
No.
Okay, what is the B movie where like this
The animated one with Seinfeld?
yeah.
Yeah, I know of it. I don't know it though.
Oh well, like with their purpose is kind of like decided. No, not the B movie. I'm saying the ant movie. Their
Okay.
purpose is to decide ants. Their
Mm,
purpose is decided like for them, right? You're
mm,
either a worker or you're a warrior, and just
mm,
from jump, just because of the way you look or whatever, like
mm,
which just I would that I don't like that.
mm,
I don't like having some whoever, whether a cosmic deity or just somebody
mm,
across the street, controlling what my purpose is.
mm.
I like having my own purpose. To
Okay.
me, that is freedom.
Okay.
And so I have apologists all the time. They come on the show. They're like, "Well, that's your purpose, but what is your objective purpose?"
Mm.
That's an oxymoron. Purpose is entirely subjective. So
So
it
you
isn't.
don't think there is a overarching purpose or meaning to life?
Nope. I'm a what you call a cosmic nihilist. I don't think the
Okay.
universe cares anything about us. It doesn't seem like it cares anything
Gotcha.
about us or life in general. But I have purpose.
Mm,
I mean, purpose is a result of a mind. It is
mm,
subjective. Without a mind, there's not going to be any sort of purpose
gotcha.
or intent whatsoever. Purpose is again, this is axiological,
Mm,
which is in the nature of subjectivity.
mm.
So
So
that is just
cosmic nihilism doesn't send you into depression?
no, because I still have purpose. It's
Okay.
just the universe doesn't care about me, you know.
Got
But
you.
I don't care for the universe either. Like yeah, you universe, good for you too. But like I can still care
Right.
about myself. I can still care about my children. Still care about my
Yeah.
wife. And
Good
so
stuff.
this is enlightening. Which to
Mm,
me was horrible. Would be an awful reality,
mm,
as if
mm.
there was some God that was determining my purpose.
Yeah.
Whereas we talk about Pharaoh, he was created to
Mm.
be a vessel
Destroyed.
of right,
Yeah.
vessel of wrath, vessel of
Mm,
destruction. God made him for the purpose of destroying him. And
mm.
that's not just Pharaoh, that could be you, that could be me.
Yeah.
For the people watching, that could have been you. Is that what you want?
I'm going to get off of here and I'm going to post this on Facebook now. I was trying to take a day off, but I
Oh
always get things
yeah.
that pop into my mind. But I'm going to actually just post now. Like, if there is a overarching purpose to life, God is a terrible communicator.
Right.
Because you, Christian, might think, oh, you found your purpose. What is it? The reform would say to enjoy God, to worship God and enjoy him forever by worship, whatever. Okay, so you got your purpose. How many people on the planet will have no idea about that purpose?
Right.
And what is God's responsibility in communicating that purpose? So how many people will live and die having never come to understand what you're saying is the purpose of life? And what
Right.
is God's responsibility in communicating that?
It's a matter of fact, it's because it's a huge question within Christianity. That's why if you look at about like if you read like Christian nonfiction,
Mm,
probably the most popular topic you read is about finding your purpose.
yeah.
It's because and the reason that's so is because the Bible does a really shitty job of explaining what it is. That's why there's
Well,
so many
even if
books
it did a great job,
on
how many people are
where you
not Bible readers? Like, so you're still not going to know what your purpose is because
right,
that's just not the faith that you grew up around.
right,
Like, it's
right,
terrible. It's a terrible idea
mhm,
to put it in a book.
right,
So,
right.
hey, but I definitely got to get you back on because I want to hear your thoughts on anarchism.
Oh yeah,
And
man,
yeah.
definitely.
But hey, thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and stop.